Hey, what do you say? What do you hear? What do you know? Beautiful sunny day. Should be out riding, but it's it's Wednesday. There's not a lot to be had. Not a lot of fun to be had on a Wednesday at 11:30 in the morning. Riding on one's own. Got Beachy Head. It's a nice little run, but yeah, it lacks a certain je ne sais quoi, as the French would say. So another morning video, and I'm talking to you fucking nutters that go hooning around the Queen's Highway at stupid velocities. Why'd you do it? What are you up to? What's going through your noggins? Yeah, good question. So, I've seen a few posts about track days, because obviously the COVID's coming to an end, maybe, and guys are starting to fettle up for the track day season, middle of summer, hot tarmac, beautiful weather, no rain. And it got me thinking, why do certain hooners prefer the Queen's Highway over the track? Now, somebody mentioned that he likes to pay a premium for no potholes, nobody pulling out in front of him, all the dangers that go with the use of the road. I've watched the onboard camera footage from the Isle of Man TT circuit, and my reaction's always been, fucking nutters. No fucking way would I have anything to do with that. And yet I go out on the highway, and obviously I don't go as consistently fast as the TT riders. It's not physically possible. But I go out with guys that go fast, and I go fast with them, and we are taking massively more risks of dying than any TT racer, for very obvious reasons. If you fuck it up on a racetrack, there's not a lot that's going to happen to you. Usually the result is sliding across the track into the kitty litter, and not too worse for wear. On the Isle of Man circuit, there are not many places where you get to slide without hitting something hard. So it's fucking dangerous, and I've seen some footage of guys crashing horribly, and some of them dead as a result. But it's one-way traffic. You've got the telegraph poles, you've got the brick walls, you've got lots of hard things you can slide into, but it does lack oncoming traffic. But at much higher velocities. So if you go into a brick wall with your body at 120 miles an hour, there's not much chance you're going to walk away from that. It's good night, Irene. On the road, if you slide into a brick wall at, 60 miles an hour, you've got a chance of surviving it. Telegraph pole, probably not. Into an oncoming car that's doing, say 40 miles an hour, and you've come off at 60, you're going to meet that car 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour, probably slide under it, get your helmet caught, you have your head ripped off, whatever. You can imagine all the possible outcomes of something like that. So I would argue that the most dangerous way to ride a bike at high speed is on a public road. It's kind of a no-brainer really when you think of all the permutations of what can happen if you come off. So the question is, why do we do it? There's an old aphorism, one of millions, that without the fear of death, life isn't as sweet, or words to that effect. So you've got all your extreme sports. There's a sliding scale of how dangerous they are. Parachuting appears extremely dangerous, chucking yourself out of a perfectly good airplane, but it's very, very rare for a parachute to fail. So as terrifying as it looks and may feel, at least the first few times you do it, it's not really that dangerous. At the other end of the scale, there's people that climb up those fucking great skyscrapers and stand out on an iron girder and balance and hang by their fingertips. Yeah, it's pretty dangerous. But then you've got, I've read articles that it's now known that there is a gene that controls or has to do with fear. You can be born without the fear gene, or fear genes, maybe there's a group of them. But if you're born without a fear gene, you don't feel fear. You don't get that visceral terror at something dangerous. It just doesn't trigger. They know they're lacking the fear gene, but it allows them to take stupid risks without losing physical control through fear. Don't panic. Panic leads to death. Well, they don't panic. They have no fear. Then you have a group of people that have the fear gene, but they lack imagination. That usually tends to be lower down the intelligence scale. So the dumber you are, the less imagination you have, and consequently the less fear you have. So you'll see people, stupid people, doing crazily dangerous things with apparently no fear. Well, they feel little fear or no fear because they don't have imagination enough to know how dangerous it is what they're doing. Then you've got regular people that have the fear gene and enough imagination to know that if they come unstuck, it's going to end badly. And yet they persist in doing what they do. So the question that's I'm pondering, or have been pondering on, is why? So yeah, the old aphorism, without the fear of death, life is not so sweet. Certainly if you come close to death and survive it, you know that feeling you get afterwards. Oh yeah, that's a fucking rush. It's a rush that few drugs can match. But having had that experience once, twice, why would you continue to do it? So there must be another element, and I think it's to do with that quote. That quote in Blade Runner expresses it very nicely.
Quite an experience to live in fear, isn't it? That's what it is to be a slave.
And I took that two ways. The obvious meaning was that if you're a slave, then as a result of being a slave, you live in fear, which makes sense. But I saw it the other way, which was just to live in fear makes you a slave. It makes you a slave to fear. And I kind of have a feeling that that's what we're rebelling against, or we're trying to counter. Trying to counter it. Life is full of fear if you engage in certain kinds of pursuits, and you either shy away from it, you run away from it, or you confront it. You're just like, fuck off. I am afraid of doing that, but I enjoy doing it, and I'm not going to let the fear of doing it put me off it. But there's kind of an overlap there where just doing it for fun and then doing it just to feel the fear of doing it because it's dangerous, and overcoming that fear, where do those two meet up and where do they overlap? Good question. So yeah, that's my conclusion on that. What was it? A very fine sergeant major many years ago when I was in the army. He had us in a lecture room. I think it was an old Naffy cinema because it had tiered seats, and they used it as a room for training lecturing. One of the comments from him that stands out in my memory was he said, "Without fear, there can be no courage." Did I already mention that? I might have done. My brain's getting old. I forget things, even things I've said 5 minutes before. But yeah, he said that. Without fear, there can be no courage. I think he must have been talking about acts of courage in battle, and everyone going, "Yeah, that was incredible." And he was making the point that, well, just remember, lads, if you're not frightened of something and you do it, it can't be courage because you feel no fear. Without fear, there can be no courage. So maybe that's another element, that we are overcoming our fear of danger so that we can know that we've been courageous. And that's a self-esteem thing or a self-respect thing, whatever. I don't think it's to try and impress other people, because we understand that most other people haven't got a fucking clue what's going on there. So it's not to try and impress. It's not an ego thing. I think it's an introspective facet of one's personality. Having fear of something and just going, you know what, fuck off. I'm not going to live in fear of that. I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to do it again and again and again. And that is part of the enjoyment of doing it. The doing it is fun, and overcoming the fear of doing it, that's an extra dimension of fun. So yeah, just chucking that out there for us to ponder on, think about. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Thanks for listening yet again to my inarticulate rambling, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched C-beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain.